Hi, Trinetra. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are
Hi.
you?
Great. So I loved you, of course, in Maiden Heaven, and I've just seen a little bit of Kankhajura, and it looks very promising.
Thank you.
And you were in Jaideep Sarkar's film as well, right? What was the documentary? That documentary series,
It was called Rainbow
Rainbow
Rishta.
Rainbow
Rainbow Rishta.
Rishta. It was so
Yes.
lovely. I really enjoyed that as well. So,
Thank you.
really, how has the journey been? I think the one was the struggle to become who you are now, and now is the struggle to, be in a very tough and a very cruel industry. So tell me about it.
Right. I think the journey has been.
I think I
Oh,
can't
I think
see you. Just one
my
second.
window stopped for a second.
Yeah, there you are.
Uh, what's it been like? Oh, it's been a roller
Like your hair
coaster.
color, by the way.
Sorry.
I like your hair color.
Oh, thank you, thank you. This is my character's color on the show. This is what Amy looks like, and it's one of the things that just makes me fall in love with Amy so much that she's physically so vibrant as a character,
Yeah,
and step
right.
into the shoes of someone so different from what I've done before was
Yeah.
very creatively satisfying, and I think the industry that we're talking about, it's going through some interesting times, let's put it like that, where
Yeah.
people suddenly don't know what is working at the box office, what is working on OTT. OTT is changing a bit, becoming a little more Bollywoodized, and suddenly
Yeah.
everyone's confused कि क्या चल रहा है actually.
Right.
And I think in such uncertain times, it's very I'm fortunate, and it warms my heart that we still have it in us as an industry to be telling trans stories, because it's unfortunate that even in 2025 the amount of trans and queer representation that we have is so little, and not a day goes by that I don't hear some trans or queer actor has had a bad experience with a casting director, or a bad experience being on set or whatever with somebody. And to be very honest with you, I have had those days as well. I've had some interactions with some people that were far from savory, that were far from appropriate, and it really disappoints you. Um, but I would say that Made in Heaven was my first audition ever, and it worked out. And
Wow.
I
And how? And
and
how?
how and how and I will say though that when you start on a set like that, it doesn't give you the most accurate picture of what the rest of the industry is like,
Absolutely.
and
You
what
really
the
are.
rest. Sorry.
You get spoiled, I mean, not everybody is as careful of giving you a good working environment, a safe
Yeah.
space. I mean, there's so many things that Tiger Baby does which other people don't.
Yeah. Yeah, oh, absolutely. I think, while there are challenges on any set, like for example, on Made in Heaven, my challenge was to be in a set full of such experienced actors.
Yeah.
Like every episode had many, many actors, and with Kankhajura, that's not the case, where my scenes are
Yeah.
largely like, a few people. So with Made in Heaven, there was stalwarts like Vijay Raz, Mona Singh, so many people. So I had to make sure that I didn't let the intimidation get ahead of me,
Yeah.
right? Because I was
Also,
to the
you were
first.
coming into a second season, Trinitra. So,
Yeah,
some of the actors had already had, they'd got work a great equation between themselves, right? And you
exactly.
were the
That
new person.
Yeah, that was also, in the initial bits a little intimidating to sort of step into, like a space where everyone has like those relationships with each other. But
Yeah.
here, I feel like the time between Rainbow Rishta or Maiden Heaven and now, which is Kankhajura, I had the joy and the opportunity to work on my craft, which is
Right.
something that I didn't get too much time for before Made in Heaven, because I was still an intern in medical school, and I was sort of stepping into this part. And after Made in Heaven, I auditioned for several parts, dealt with rejection, which is really important for you as an actor also to understand what is it that a filmmaker wants in an audition, what is it that a casting director is looking for, what are your shortcomings, what do you need to work on, and I think
Right,
those are all questions that I had the opportunity to explore. And so when Kankhajura happened, we started shooting it, and even through the process of it, I felt very enriched as an actor that I've been able to do something that is so different and so new to what Meher was. You know, in many ways, Meher was similar to who I am in real life. Amy is
right,
nothing like that. And
right.
you know, she's got no makeup on her face. She's crass, she's bold, but she has a vulnerable side also, and she will not shy away from calling a spade, and she'll say तुम्हारा
Yeah,
दिमाग खराब पागल हो गया, and she's just like all over the place, you know, and yelling at people and screaming. It was just you know, just a beautiful experience to step away from me and what I'm familiar with and put myself in unfamiliar territory and play with that. And I think that's a very actor specific joy that
right,
not many experience as trans actors, and that is not lost on me at all, you know.
right. Trinetra, you talked about the time between Made in Heaven, Rainbow Rishta, where you were pretty much yourself, and this. So, what does an actor do during that time? Do you go for workshops? You work on yourself? And tell me about what you did.
So for me, you know, acting is definitely a part of my
And are
life.
you
It's
now, by the way, sorry to interrupt again. Are you now a qualified doctor? Or,
yes,
I
yes,
mean, yes. So, you're in
I am.
MBBS.
Yes, I'm an MBBS. I don't practice. I, you know, don't work at a hospital anymore. But when I was shooting Made in Heaven, I was still an intern. So I was in my intern year.
Okay.
And the whole thing, in fact, both shows, Made in Heaven and Rainbow Rishta, were shot when I was still interning. So it was a very
Okay.
challenging time for me to, you know, put myself in a 12-hour, 15-hour COVID duty and then step away from that and be in a glamorous world on a set where
Right.
I'm required to be a certain way. And then I think that's when I realized that, you know, I can't do this 50-50 business. I can't, you know, give half of myself, and because the demands of the worlds that these two worlds are, they're so intense and they're so
Yeah.
different from that they can't possibly coexist, at least at this stage in my life. So I
Right.
decided to give this my all, my 100%. And, you know, to answer your question, I'm also a content creator, right? I'm also a social media content
Yeah.
creator. So a fair amount of time does go into creating that content, associating with brands, and also, like you said, workshops, an extremely important part of my life in the past 2 years of discovering myself has been through
Right.
the workshops that I've done. I have worked with some incredible people. I did, like, the first workshop I did in a group was with Atul Mongia, who
Oh,
is
he's supposed to be very good, right?
who's very good, and that was a wonderful experience for me to be in that space and learn, you know, in a group full of people with different levels of experience, and to pick up tools and to work with my breath and to work with my body and really loosen my body up in a way, because I feel like we as trans people store so much trauma in our bodies as a result
Yeah.
of what we gone through, and we don't even realize, like, for example, I realized in that workshop the amount of tension I hold in my shoulders, it's ridiculous. Like, I had no idea, and I had these back pains forever, and I just thought that, you know, it's just my posture or whatever. But um, you realize that so much of, like, the body really remembers what it goes through in
Yeah.
so many ways. In fact, I think that's the name of a book, The Body
Yeah, but
Remembers.
exactly. The body remembers. Yeah. And
And
you discovered this during the course of the workshop, Trinetra, that this was really what was the cause. How interesting.
yeah, yeah, I
And you're a
never gave
doctor. You ought to know about.
yeah. That's the thing. That's the funniest thing. Doctors are the worst at being patients. We're just the worst patients. We have no clue how to go about, giving our own bodies. Like, if you ask any doctor, like, their lifestyle is absolute nonsense and garbage. We don't sleep. We don't.
Absolutely.
So I think I just never gave it much attention, but I realized that, I do hold a lot of tension in my shoulders. And then Helena Walsh was another acting coach I worked with, who is based in the UK, and she works with something called neurosystemics and organic intelligence, which is her sort of
Wow.
her brand, and it's what she works with. And I found that school of thought so interesting because, her entire philosophy is that I don't want you to sit and traumatize yourself to play a scene just because the scene involves trauma. I don't need you to do
Right.
that. I don't need you to relive sexual trauma in order to play a part that has that. What I need you to do as an actor is to regulate your nervous system. Your nervous system is how your brain is interacting with your body and your breath. So if you are able to teach your body that, I'm in a safe environment, I'm able to regulate my breath, that even if I'm on a set in front of 200 people and I need to do this intimate
Right.
scene, or a challenging scene, my body needs to feel like it is in a safe space, that it is safe within itself to be able to play with the tools of my voice and my breath
Right.
and my,
Death.
you know and different parts of my body in order to get that scene right. Because at the end of the day, it's performance. You're acting,
Right.
you're performing. You are not, it's like,
Living.
yeah, you're not living it. You can't, for
Yeah.
example, like, you slap a person and take the reaction of that. That's acting, right? Like, that is just
Right.
you putting somebody through pain.
Yeah.
um, so I really found her philosophy interesting, where she, taught me tools where I need not, sort of pull from my own traumatizing or traumatic experiences, but still be able to do a scene and walk away from it okay, feeling okay, and step out of it, because that's the job. You have to learn how to step in and step out and step in and step
Definitely.
out. um, and that to me is really fascinating. Of course, there is the concept of emotional memory, right, that you're taught as an actor, where
Yeah.
you have to live as many experiences as possible so that you can draw from that. um, but I also realized that you don't have to all the time. You can also just use your body as an instrument, as a tool to create certain things.
Right.
So I think those
Did,
workshops
yeah.
really taught
Those
me.
workshops really, yeah. Right. And while you were doing this, you continued your auditions.
Yeah, and I still do. It's part of my life. I feel like
Right.
auditioning is bread and butter for us. And I think, in fact, most recently I auditioned for a cis woman's part, which was something
Okay.
that I've never
How
done before.
nice.
Yeah, yeah. I never thought that I would get to a point in my transition or life where a casting director would be open to imagining a trans actor in a cis part, But like, if men have traditionally played our roles as trans people, and the
Yeah.
argument
Why
there,
can't yeah.
yeah, and the argument has always been, oh, but actors should be able to do anything. Well, you're absolutely right. Then why should I not be able to do anything?
Exactly. How did that
And
go?
it went well. I'm yet to hear from them, but we don't know yet. It may or may not work. But even the process of, and the other thing I should mention is, workshops are where you really get to play as an actor, right? Because a set
Right.
is not, a set has, timelines, and there's a
Yeah.
lot of discipline, and there's a lot of people involved. So you don't get to play as much. And I feel like that's where theater actors have a huge amount of advantage, that they really get to
Advantage. Yeah.
play with their craft. And I think that workshops are where I got to do that. And in Helena's workshop, I got to play a pregnant woman who was
Oh,
disclosing,
yes.
yeah, was disclosing to her sister that she's pregnant, and that she actually wants to keep the baby. And while the sister is dealing with actually the loss of a child, her own
Right.
child, lost a child in an accident. And the grief of that, the sisterhood of that. So for me, I realize that that is the most delicious part about being an actor, where I'm not limited to my trans identity. I'm not limited to gender. I would like to be able to play all kinds of things,
Yeah,
and that's something that Kankhajura really let me do. Just be someone that I'm absolutely nothing like in real life. And
right.
I think as we watch this season, we'll see that unfurl. And I'm just very glad that I got to do it with such amazing people as well. With Roshan,
Yeah, a
with
great
Chandan.
cast. Roshan and Mohit, all very fine actors.
Yeah, very fine actors. And to be cast opposite Roshan was a dream.
Yeah, he's really amazing. But
Yeah.
Trinita, I've also looked at other industries. I mean, apart from the Hindi film and Hindi entertainment industry, the other industries in India.
I would say it's an ongoing process. It's just that I don't have, unfortunately, as many connections. But I'm so glad that Roshan was part of this, and Rajiv Ravi
Yeah,
sir, the cinematographer,
right.
was part of this, because these are people that I really look up to for their Malayalam work. I really, really find Malayalam as an industry really fun.
Absolutely. That's what I was just thinking that, it's a very interesting industry that would, I think, be very accepting of you as well.
I would really hope so, and in the last few years, the last 1 year at least, I've tried to really sort of talk to people, see how it works, because I'm sure every industry has its own dynamics and things like
Yeah.
that. But Malayalam is definitely, and even Telugu for that matter, because I am half Telugu, like my father is Telugu,
You're half
and
Telugu and half Bengali, right?
yes, yes.
So what do
So
you
I,
speak at home?
Bangla,
Oh,
it's
nice.
Bangla. There's also bits of Kannada because I was born and raised in Bangalore. So
Right.
there's Kannada, and I had to learn Kannada in college to speak
School.
to my patients.
Oh, right,
Um,
too. Right, right.
and so I would love to do Bangla. I would really, because people like Konkona Sen Sharma, people like Tilotama,
Yeah, it's
um,
so amazing.
so amazing. I adore their work. Parum Roto, for example, I really love all of his movies. Ritu Parna, Shane Gupta. I love these people, and I really, really want to work with them. And also, Malayalam, I have adored Roshan forever in his work,
Yeah.
whether it's Moon, whether it's like Anam Penam. And in fact, that was a challenge for me to not fangirl when I met him, because I was like, I want to be professional, I want to be an actor, and I just want to do the job well. But
Just think of
that
what journalists have to do, Trinetra, when we talk to people like him.
I'm
We have
sure,
the
I'm
same
sure.
problem.
Yeah, but it was, just deeply satisfying. I think, there was a time just 2 years ago when I would watch him on screen and message him like a fangirl saying, "Oh, I loved you so much in this." And he actually was gracious enough to respond to those messages and be like, "Thank you so much." And then when this was happening, it was life come full circle. And I was like, I'm so happy. Yeah.
What did you see him in that you liked him in the first time? What was the movie?
First movie I watched was Muthon. Muthon was directed
Ah,
by
right.
Geetu Mohandas.
Gitu Mohandas. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And her husband, like Rajiv sir, was the DOP on Kankhajura and Muthon as well. So there's that
Right.
connection, um, strangely enough. And which is why it felt, life comes so full circle, because I couldn't
Right. In
imagine
a way. Yeah.
that Roshan and Rajiv sir
Yeah.
would come together like that on this. But what I loved about Roshan in that movie is that he plays a queer man, firstly,
Yeah.
and he has no dialogue. It's
Right.
just his eyes. It's just his face. It's just his eyes, and I found his performance so touching that he's able to build chemistry with just his eyes and just without saying anything. And it just speaks to how good of a performer he is. And I found that so moving and so inspirational. and therefore intimidating when on set.
Right. Of course.
But I think once that working relationship was established, it was very easy from there. He's very generous as an actor. He gives you a lot to work with. So, um, yeah, I'm just very glad to have been part of something like that.
Trinetra, the industry can also be very cruel, as we know. Are there
Unfortunately,
horrible things that people say to you which you have to just,
yeah,
ignore?
many such things, of course. I mean, social media is one aspect of that. We know this. That anything you say or
Um,
do,
uh, yeah,
like
you can get trolled for the strangest things.
absolutely, absolutely. And that just, it comes with, it's part of the territory and it's part of this life.
Right.
But Reddit, for example, as a platform, you say or do anything, it's immediately sort of taken out of context and put on a platform. And
Yeah.
when I underwent certain procedures in my transition, for example, right, like facial feminization surgery, something I've spoken about, I've been open about every part of my transition, which many parts of the industry or many people did not see very positively. They were like, why are you talking about this stuff? All actresses do it, many actors do it. Why are you being open about it? But I know what it's like to be a trans person
Yeah.
who has no access to resources, who has no access to information, or to go about how to go about certain procedures, how to um, bring alive your identity, right? How to embody that.
Right.
So for me, I just because I'm an actor, just because I'm part of an industry, does not mean the social responsibility bit is gone or that I stop being trans. And activism has been a huge part of my life in the past. It may not be such a big part anymore, but that doesn't mean that through my work and through my voice, I don't continue to advocate for things that I believe in. And transparency is something that I really believe in, because the entire beauty industry, the entire concept of beauty, the way that it exists today, thrives on
It's
opacity.
fake. Yeah.
Yeah, it thrives on opacity and lies, and creating a sense of envy, that I feel only negatively affects trans people so much,
Yeah.
because not only do
Yeah.
we have to deal with the pressures of being accepted as people, but there is also now the beauty standard of a woman and what she should look like
Right.
in the, and I feel like that can weigh down very heavily
Yeah.
on some days and on some occasions. Of course, there have been some casting directors who've said, you don't look trans enough anymore. While earlier they say,
You don't look cis enough. Oof.
yeah, earlier it was, you don't look woman enough. Now it's, you don't look. So, there will always be people that you are not enough for. There will always be people that, don't see something in you, but you can't let it get to you. You can't let failure or rejection or an
Yeah.
audition not working out or someone that you meet and them saying something insensitive, and of course people say sensitive things. Yeah, like I used to think that if I'm coming to a creative space with actors and creative people, that they will be more educated because they have more exposure. Not true.
Not at all.
Not true at all. And that was, it was a realization, and I realized that just because the thing about being a doctor is, people are direct. Doctors are
Yeah,
direct about who they are. There is no
exactly.
performance, right? But I feel like in this industry, there is so much performance. There is so much, even outside of, even offline, even
More
off.
more acting
Oh.
offline sometimes.
I agree, and I think part of that performativity is also the being accepting of queer people. A lot of people perform that acceptance. A lot of
Yeah.
people perform that inclusivity, but may not necessarily embody that and feel that
Or believe in it. Yeah.
or believe in it. And you can tell when you interact with people, even if it's not direct
Yeah.
in words.
I mean, you must be so used to, sort of judging people or sort of perceiving what people think or. feel about you, right? We all do. We all get, but
We
in your
do.
case, I think it must be hyper. That must be hyper sort of, shall I say, hyper in hyper
Vigilance.
mode, right? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I would say that that's very true. But, I think I'm very glad and grateful to medicine as a profession for sort of giving me that grounding that I really needed. I'm so glad I didn't grow up in the industry. I'm so glad. I say this every
yeah,
day. I am so happy that I know what it's like to interact with people from rural India, to treat
yeah.
their diseases, to touch, their bodies, and to treat every single body as an equal. Because
Equal.
unfortunately, in entertainment, you meet, like, I operate from this baseline equality. I took an oath,
Yeah,
right? I've been literally trained to treat every human being from every social location with the same amount of dignity and the same amount of respect.
yeah.
But you come to entertainment and you realize कि वो baseline सबके लिए नहीं है, and
Right,
not everyone functions like that. And in fact,
right.
if you it's a very strange kind of language. Sometimes if you give people baseline respect, they won't take you seriously, because it's like, why is she being so nice? If she's an
Yeah,
actor and she's a star or whatever, she should behave a certain way, na, and put up, be one diva and be this thing. And I'm like, what the hell? This expectation of you to actually not be well behaved in order to be
yeah.
perceived as successful,
A
or to be
star or
perceived,
successful.
yeah, or to throw attitude of a certain kind. So that to me is really bizarre. But at the same time, I think every individual has the right to carve their own path. Every actor has the right to carve their own path, and I have always done it my way, and I will continue to do it my way. And touch wood, so far it works. It seems to be working.
Yeah, I mean, how long have you been in the industry? What, 2 years, 3 years?
I started shooting Made in Heaven 21, so technically four
Right.
years. But
Yeah,
since my move to Bombay, it's been 2 years, yeah. So I would
right.
still say I'm very, very new to the city, but I came well prepared.
Is Bombay more accepting than Bangalore is as a city?
I would think yes. I would think yes, because, but the thing is, I also haven't lived in Bangalore for too long as myself. So
Right,
most of my life in Bangalore was pre-transition,
right.
and my transition happened almost entirely in Manipal, which was the town in which I studied
Yeah,
medicine. And um, Manipal was a very conservative town, so it was difficult. The student population was very accepting. Barring exceptions. But as a town, as a locality itself, Mangalore, Manipal, Udupi, these are fairly conservative cities. So, in comparison, I mean, there is no comparison. Bombay is infinitely more accepting, and I found communities so quickly and so easily. And it's beautiful to be in a city where I have people like myself to go to when I need. I mean, of course, yes and no. That's a complicated equation, and I'll tell you why. Because this is uncharted territory. There aren't a lot of trans
right.
actors,
Yeah,
who are especially trans women who are doing work
yeah,
that I can look to. But there are trans people in the industry. There is a Ghazal Dhaliwal who's
right.
incredible, who has been such an inspiration, who I go to for advice every now and then. There is incredible designer Saisha Shinde, who has done such amazing work. She dressed Miss Universe a few years ago, very
Yeah.
recently, right? And I think it's, yeah, there are people. It's a little lonely, but I wouldn't find this in Bangalore. I wouldn't find this in Manipal or in any other city. I think Bombay is that one place जहाँ मतलब हर किसी के लिए
सब
जगह है,
कुछ चलता है.
सब कुछ होता है.
Is
So
your
yeah,
transition complete, Trinetra, or do you still have anything to do, more stuff to do?
I'm done.
How
I
many surgeries did it take? How many years?
It took me almost 6 years to sort of go through the whole bit, and
Wow.
it's very individual, right? Like I think what
Yeah,
everyone
it all
wants
depends. Yeah,
depends. Some people don't need certain things, don't want certain things. For
right.
me, without going into specifics,
Yeah,
even get to a point of being able to afford the final few things in transition.
yeah, yeah.
It took a while. It took a while, and that's coming from someone who is very privileged,
Right.
who had familial acceptance and things. So you can only imagine how hard it must be for the
Oh,
community
yes.
to.
I've talked to some people and it's heartbreaking. They take loans and
Yeah.
they get deep into debt. It can be heartbreaking and backbreaking, financially.
And the fact
We
that,
forget that aspect of it.
yeah, and as a doctor, I can tell you that we're not trained in these aspects very well
Yeah,
either, necessarily. And to access the best medical care in the country is enormously expensive for the community. And even the best
absolutely.
sometimes don't have the best skills, right?
Yes,
Because that kind of training in the country does not exist. So
right,
I had my sex reassignment surgery in Bangkok, for example, and not in India,
right,
because the best surgeons in the world are
right.
there. Um, and for facial feminization and face related work, all of it happened in Spain because that's where the best in the
Okay.
world are. So I've also been very fortunate to be around at a time when influencer marketing, where brand endorsements, where
Right.
it having coming out at an opportune time for me to be able to save that money and to do what I
Right.
need to do. So I think I've been very fortunate, touchwood, in that sense, but it's a long process and it's not
Yeah.
easy and it's not something that many people have access to. And I feel like someday, I will say it's changing. I know a lot of people working in trans healthcare at the moment. There is, for example, this thing called the Association for Transgender Health in India, ATHI, which is run by a friend, Tia's father. He's a pediatrician and he started this organization and he does a lot of activism around educating doctors to make
Okay.
them more sensitive, aware, and so the scene of Indian healthcare is slowly but surely also changing. So it's not all doom and gloom. um, and I can only hope that with all of our efforts as trans people, whether in entertainment, whether in other professions,
Yeah.
we're able to just sort of slowly build that world and that society where this is normal, that this is not something that one should struggle with, you know. And while Maiden Heaven had a very tier one appeal, I'm very glad that Kankhajura has a tier two,
Yeah.
tier
I
three
think
appeal,
it will have a broader appeal.
a
Yeah.
broader appeal, and
Yeah.
that's my dream, to get as much visibility out there
Absolutely.
in as many spaces as I can. So
Ma'am, Trinitra,
What? Yeah.
interview will cut in 5 minutes because we'll pass the.
Okay, just the last question. Just the last question. Trinetra, just the last question. In terms of, there's such a pushback globally to a lot of trans work, a lot of the achievements of the trans community in terms of diversity. You see so much of a pushback in America, in England. Sometimes I think it's so much easier to be in India currently. Don't you think?
yes, I would say, I mean, it's not easy anywhere. I wouldn't say easier, but
Yeah,
I would say there are aspects in which we're far better off.
yeah,
That,
there
at
are,
least
right?
absolutely. I'm like, for example, to access hormone replacement therapy, I don't have to wait
Yeah,
6 months to go to, in order to access like my legal rights to change my documents. I don't have an entire political lobby fighting against that, which is
right.
unfortunately the case in the UK and in the US.
Yeah,
We're seeing a
yeah,
lot of anti-trans bills being passed in parliament. We're seeing a lot of pushback on gender recognition,
yeah.
on access to trans healthcare. And it's really horrifying, especially in the States, to see abortion and
Abortion.
reproductive rights
Yeah,
being pushed back the way that they have been, and Roe v. Wade falling, and all
yeah, yeah.
kinds of really archaic things
Going
happening.
back to
It's
the 80s and the dark ages,
uh,
really.
what is this Victorian era morality that we're
Yeah.
bringing back? I do agree with you that, when it comes to policy, when it comes to law, when it comes to legal recognition, at least we don't have pushback.
Yeah.
We may be slow with progress, but we don't have pushback. So that is, I'm
At least
grateful
not
for.
legally.
At least not legally, yeah. At least we don't have politicians saying, "I will take your rights away."
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is,
They're more bothered about other communities, unfortunately.
yes,
But
yes.
really, what a pleasure it was to speak to you, Trinetra. And
Like,
may I say again how lovely you are, and all the very best. I love your hair color. What is it called?
I have no idea. My hairstylist has done it. But it was a pleasure
It's
talking to
lovely.
you. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much. And I do hope we talk again soon. All the best.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Please take care.
Bye.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Trinetra.
Bye.